Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a creature using the framework I'm developing, and the framework is called Forms. So I'm just going to show you what creature we're going to make. This creature I was making with my students this week, and we decided we'd call this creature Steve. So I'll just show you what Steve looks like first of all. So it's just a bit of a fantasy creature. It's got lots of wings and it has a tail and it has lots of different body parts. And you'll notice that the head is animating, so the head is kind of bobbing up and down as the creature is moving. And the wings are all, waving up and down. You'll notice that they're all slightly waving up and down at what do wings do? Wings flap. So the wings are flapping slightly off from each other. You can see what's basically happening there. And you can see also that the tail is animating there as well. So the whole lot is procedurally generated and procedurally animated using all of the components in Forms. So, okay, I'm going to explain how I made this creature now. So let's just, I'll stop playing this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll just disable Steve in the scene so I can start from scratch. All right, and there's all the Steve creature parts. And okay, what I'll do is, first of all, I'm going to make an empty game object. And this empty game object is just going to be a container for all of the prefabs that we're going to use to make Steve. So I'm going to call this Steve creature parts. I'll call it Steve creature parts 1 because I already have one. So this is just a container, so I can group all of the prefabs and I can enable and disable them all at one go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a head for Steve. So let me get the pre-made head open on my other computer here. Okay, so here's the head for Steve. First thing I'm going to do is make, let's see, what can I do here for Steve? What's that do for? Oh yeah, okay, let's make a sphere. All right, so the sphere is going to be Steve's head, and I'm going to rename that to be head. So there's two ways you can procedurally animate creatures using Forms. One is procedurally generate one. I guess maybe you can procedurally generate one or you can pre-generate one. By procedurally generate one, I mean you can use what's called a creature generator. And the creature generator, you give it a load of prefabs and it will lay out the head, the body sections, and the tail and the fins and link them all up together and parent them in the correct way. That's the way I'm going to make Steve today. The other way you can make Steve is you can just use for example, a skinned model or any old 3D model, and you can just attach the components to the appropriate bones in the model and it will animate and it will move. But I'm going to do that maybe in another video. For now, I'm going to make Steve using the creature generator. All right, so I'm going to make a head first of all. The head is a sphere. So when I'm making a creature using the creature generator in Forms, you should basically make all of the components you're going to make the creature out of. You should make them unit size. In other words, they should be size 1, 1, 1. That's the scale that I have set this head to. All right, so there's the head. I'm not going to color it because I'm going to let the creature generator color it. The first component you need to add is called a void. So a void is basically, if you like, the brain. And this is sort of like the container for all of the behaviors that we're going to add to Steve's head. Okay, so what does that mean? So I'm going to at some stage want this head to do a harmonic motion. I'm going to want to get it to avoid obstacles, maybe to flee from the player or to flee from some enemies. And so I'm going to add all of those behaviors one at a time. The void is basically a container for all of those behaviors, and it kind of manages all of those behaviors. It also, what it'll do is it'll use all of those behaviors to calculate the forces which get applied to Steve, and it will apply some prioritization and things like that to how the forces get combined together. Anyway, so there's a few important numbers that we need to set here. Mass is basically the mass, so I'm going to leave that at 1. Maximum speed for this I'm going to set to be 8, and the maximum force I'm going to set to 10. Now let's see, is there anything else I need to change with Steve? The time multiplier, we'll experiment with that maybe when I've made the creature, but the time multiplier just multiplies all of the creature's time deltas by this number. So you can basically get this creature to speed up or slow down very quickly just by changing its time delta. Damping is how much of the creature's velocity gets lost every second. So this is going to lose 1% of its velocity every second. So calculation method has to be weighted, truncated, running some with prioritization. If you want to know how that algorithm works, you can look up Programming Game by AI by example by, uh, let's see, Craig Reynolds. Craig Reynolds is theory behaviors. Programming Game AI by example is Matt Buckland. Yep, that's where I got that algorithm from. So then radius is not used. Max turn degrees, leave it at 180 for now. That's how fast the creature can turn. I'm just going to have a quick look down and see if there's anything else I need to set on that. Yeah, straightening tendency. The creature will bank from whenever it turns. In other words, it will sort of roll around its local Z axis when it does a turn. And the straightening tendency basically determines how quickly it recovers from that. I find a value of 5 is fine for this particular creature. Rolling tendency is how much roll it does when it's actually turning. Integrate forces, probably leave that to be true. If this is set to be false, then basically the behaviors will get calculated. You'll see the gizmos getting drawn, and the creature will turn if the behaviors determine it should turn, but it won't actually move. And it's just a quick way to see if your behaviors are working. You can turn integrate forces off, and you can see the gizmos get calculated, but the creature won't actually move. So everything else, let's leave that at its default. Okay. So that's the head. If I hit play now, the head won't actually do anything, and that's because the void is just really a container for all of the behaviors. So before you add the behaviors, you have to add the void. So the first behavior I'm going to add is called a harmonic. All of these behaviors, there's basically 3 types of components in forms. There are behaviors, generators, and animators. First thing we're going to look at is behaviors. All of these behaviors are based on Craig Reynolds' steering behaviors. Craig Reynolds invented these steering behaviors, I think it was back in the 80s. And he discovered ways to get autonomous agents to do things like move around in an environment whilst avoiding obstacles and fleeing and so on. So these are all ways basically to get things to move, different types of AI to get things to move intelligently. Autonomous agents basically meaning that they're things which are physically simulated, but they also are capable of perceiving their environment and responding to their environment. Okay, so the harmonic is a steering behavior, and you can see how it works. Actually, I'll show you how it works if I turn off integrated forces here, and if I leave the harmonic on. I'm just going to set good values for this from my pre-made one. The weight basically is just a weight, you know, how much of this force gets combined into the overall force, which is the Boyd's force. In other words, to cause it to move around. This basically means that the harmonic force gets multiplied by 10. Force magnitude, you can't set this. This is just a slider, so I can see how much force this behavior is generating relative to the other forces. So this slider will move up and down like this as the behavior is activated. Speed is how fast the harmonic behavior is going to cycle. The harmonic is something in this example here. What this will do is this will cause the head sort of move in upwards and downwards, like as if a fish was swimming through the water. That's what the harmonic behavior is going to do. Frequency, at the moment, this value is not used. 40 is what I had set the amplitude to be in my pre-made example. Set the direction to be vertical. So the direction could be either vertical or horizontal. Vertical means the creature's head is going to go up and down. Horizontal means the creature's head will move left to right like a snake. Up and down, we'll say like a dolphin or something moving through the water. So this is going to be a dolphin-like creature, so it'll move in a vertical direction. Theta, again, you don't set this. It's just there so I can read it. Radius. Radius I've set on this creature to be 20. And the distance I've set to be 10. And I'll just show you what effect they have on the creature's behavior. If I pull back like this, and okay, there's the head there. That's quite large. And the reason why it's quite big is because this creature is going to get put into a creature generator, and its size will get scaled. So even though, you know, relative to the size of the head, this is the harmonic circle looks really big, but when you see it in the creature generator, it won't be so big. Anyway, watch what this behavior does. So what I'll do just to turn it, I'll just turn the integrate forces is turned off. So you'll see what happens over here, what this behavior does to the head, right? So watch what's happening. I'm going to hit the play button there. Oh, okay, I'll undo that, maximize on play. And Steve is gone. Okay, so let's just have a look at this. You should see what happens in the gizmo here, what this behavior is going to do. All right, you can see what's happening there. the circle is moving up and down, and the green line is moving up and down along the circumference of that. Well, let's guess it's a sphere. It's moving around the circumference of the sphere. If you zoom right into, let's see, if I go to local on the head, you'll see that the head is also sort of following that, but it's slightly slower behind. That's because what's happening here is the harmonic behavior is going to generate a force to push the head towards that point that's moving around the outside of the sphere. So it's, it's going to try and align the forward vector of that head with the velocity. So that means the creature is always going to be basically pointing in the way in which it's traveling, and that's going to cause the head to actually kind of rotate as it's, sort of like up and down as it's moving towards that point along the outside of the sphere. Now, just to show you what happens when you change the values on the harmonic, you can change the size of the radius, you can make it bigger or smaller, and that changes the size of that circle. And you can also change the distance, which projects the circle further in front of the creature or closer to the creature. Further away is going to generate kind of more sweeping motion, and then closer will generate more kind of up and down motion. So, any other numbers I need to tell you about there? World target. Yeah, that's just so I can read it. That's basically the target in, I guess that must be in world space, of the point that the creature is going to try and seek to, which is moving around the outside of that sphere. So that's the harmonic behavior. Okay, so that will generate the up and down movement of the creature's head. Okay, anything else I want to add? That's enough to get us started. Okay, later I'm going to add various other behaviors to generate more interesting side-to-side motion, and also something that varies the speed and amplitude of that harmonic. Okay, but that's enough for now. All right, now I'm going to make a body part for Steve. Okay, that's basically Steve's head. Now I'm going to make a body part for Steve. To make a body part for Steve, I am just going to create a sphere. A sphere, let's see, where is the sphere? Cube sphere, there we go. And for this sphere, I don't actually need to do anything to it. I don't need to add any behaviors to it. I'm just going to bring it over there. And I'm also going to keep it unit size because I'm going to use the creature generator basically to scale these to the appropriate size. So there's the head. I'm going to rename that then to be body. Head and the body. And let's do one other thing. Let's give the creature a horn. So to give the creature a horn on its head, I am going to create a cube, 3D object. I'm going to create a cube, which I'm going to make a child of the head. And what I will do with the cube is I'm going to make it 0.1 on the Z. So basically it makes it that way. Now, is that right? It should be 0.1 on the X. All right, it makes it that way. Actually, that's kind of still too big. Let me see. What did I do on my pre-made one? I made it 0.1, 0.5, 0.5, 0.1, 0.5, and then 0.5. So I'm just changing its, 0.5, just changing its scale, and then I rotated it, I think, what did I do? 45 degrees like that. So now it's like that. And then if I take the cube and I go into local, or it doesn't matter whether I'm local or global, I need to just check this thing here, global. And then I bring it up like this so that it sticks out of the top of the head, like that. Oh, that's too high. Let me go this way. Yeah, way too high. Okay, there's that. Let's bring it down again so it goes inside the sphere. That's kind of better. Could probably bring it down a tiny bit more. There we go. And I'm going to copy and paste that onto the body as well. And I'll move it into place. So I'm just parented so that the head and the body both have that sort of like horn going on there. So I should, because I'm parenting that, I want to make that x of 0. Y should be the same on both. 32, 0, 32, 0, 32. So it's the same on both. So that just means the head and the body segments now have that little, what looks like a horn sticking out. And it's just made of a cube parented to the spheres for the head and the body section. Okay, next thing we will do is let's make a creature. So I now have a head, I now have a body. I can make a creature using a creature generator. So I'm going to right click on here, create an empty game object. I'm not going to parent it to anything. And in fact, it shouldn't be parented to the creature parts container. The reason for that is because I'm going to add some components here which will read the children of, various game objects, and it will just get confused if this is also a child. So I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to call this Steve 1. Okay, so this is Steve 1. Steve 1 is going to be made up of a head and a number of body segments laid out using a creature generator. So let's make a creature generator. The creature generator on Steve here, Steve 1, you can see the gizmo. It is drawn a gizmo there, which is a load of spheres. And those spheres are basically going to tell me what shape my creature is going to be. So at the moment, that's the shape, right? So basically, yeah, it's parameterized by these values. Now, what is going on there? Is that rotated in some weird way? Okay, that's wrong. That should be 0. That should be 1. Yeah, it's because I previously had it parented. Okay, so now it's working. So I'm going to rotate again so I can see the different segments laid out there. All right, let's do this. Here we go, and then I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, so that's the shape the creature is going to be. It's not a very pleasing shape at the moment, but there are a number of parameters we can change on the creature generator to customize the shape of the creature. I'll show you what they are now. So I'm going to find Steve on my pre-made one and see what values I used. Okay, first number you can change is the number of parts. This is the number of segments that the creature is going to have. I used 8 segments on my creature, so this is the number of segments. Next thing you can change is the vertical size. So what happens is when the components or when the parts of the creature are laid out, the vertical size determines how big each of the parts are, right? So basically vertical size of 1 means no additional scaling is applied. A vertical size that I found works for this creature is 5. So this basically scales each component by, or each component, what do I mean component? Each segment of the body by 5, right? Next thing, gap. Okay, so this leaves a gap of 1 in local space. I got 0.1. What did I use for Steve? I used -1. Okay, so that means it's going to leave a bit of an overlap. There'll be an overlap of 1 between the parts. The parts basically will join up together and there won't be any gaps in between the different parts. Okay, so there's the parts. And anything else that oh yeah, so one rather cool thing you can do here is you can change the shape of the creature. So there's a little mathematical function just based on a sine wave, or half a period or 1 period of a sine wave. That looks like it's that's a half a period of a sine wave, but what it looks like, that's a frequency of 1. Never mind. These numbers here, theta and frequency, basically control the shape that the creature is, right? So let's just play with theta. And you can see that that's basically, modifying the shape in various different ways. And you can also modify the frequency, which changes the shape of the creature as well. So I find just trial and error is the best way to get the right shaped creature here. I happen to know a creature that looks like it has a head and a neck can be generated by using these values. Theta of 2.5, 2.4, okay, and I use a frequency of 1.5, and that's what I use to generate the shape of Steve. I use a gap of -1, vertical size of 5. Okay, so that shape kind of looks okay. Let's try it out and see what happens. Okay, so now what you do is you give it the prefab that you want to use for the head. So let's pick the one that I made previously. There's the head prefab, and there's the body prefab. At some later stage, we will give it the tail and the left fin and the right fin and so on, and it will generate the rest of the creature. What I'm going to do in the head, just make sure that integrate forces is turned off for now, so the creature's head doesn't go flying off. Okay, so there we go. Integrate forces is turned off. I'm going to take Steve creature parts and I'm going to turn it off so that those creature parts don't get instantiated in the scene. The only thing that's going to get instantiated now is what the creature generator instantiates, right? So let's hit the play button. And there is the segments of Steve laid out. Okay, head and body parts. And you can see now that the head has that behavior on it. So it's doing that little up and down motion there. Let's actually take a look at that in first person view here. I'm going to maximize and we'll take a little look. Where's Steve? Oh, there it is. Look at that. Okay, so that's the segments laid out. First person camera, this is the little physics camera that I wrote. It's a little floaty at this size. It works better at a bigger size. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just put the first person controller on the camera. So I turn the first controller off, the FPS controller on, hit the play button again. And now I have just plain old first person camera controls. So I can use mouse look and I can use Wizard basically to move around the scene and take a look at my generated creature. You can see what's happening with the head there. There's the head, has the behavior on it, so the head is rotating up and down. Okay, let's now do the same thing, but let's see here. No, let's leave that. I'm gonna save my scene here. I'm gonna go and go back to the head over here, and this time I'm going to turn integrated forces on, and what will happen is the head will fly off. Integrate forces, there we go. Let's maximize on play, right? So I can see the creature. You know what I should do is move the camera so that the camera can see the creature properly. There's the camera. There's my move thing. There's my move thing. I'm going to move back over here. So basically now what will happen is the creature should get spawned in front of me, so I should see it straight away. And what you'll probably notice is, there we go. There's the head behavior. Look at that. See the way it's got that lovely harmonic thing going on and it's now rotating? Okay, wouldn't it be great if we could get the body to join up with the head and the body parts to follow the head? So if you're thinking, how am I going to do this? The simplest, way you might think to do that would be just to parent the body to the head. And of course that would work, but that's not going to generate a really realistic motion for the creature, because what will happen then is just the head's going to rotate, the body will just look like it is glued to the head, or it's basically all just one part, which isn't going to be terribly nice, right? So hope that thing is still recording okay. It looks like it's recording. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go and add another thing to the head, and this is sort of like the third part of the components. One thing is the behaviors, there's the generators, now there's an animator. So I am going to add a component called a spine animator. Purpose of the spine animator is to keep the spine of one of the creatures or anything that has bones in it, to keep them all aligned. And what you can do, because these are designed, kind of designed to work with the generators, there's this checkbox here called auto assign bones. Auto assign bones, what will happen is the spine animator will look at its parent and all of the children of its parent, in other words, the siblings of itself, and it will add those as the bones of the creature. Now, these values here for 10 and 12 for bond damping and angular bond damping, you can experiment with these, right? But bond damping is how close the parts are pushed together, and angular bond damping are how close the parts align with each other. So they will all try and line up in a row, and this value determines how much effort they make to do that. If you use lower numbers from these, the parts will drift apart a little bit more. Maybe that's what you want. And on a skinned mesh, it won't really matter. It'll just look like the skin just stretches, which is what skin is supposed to do. But in this example here, we probably want to keep that at a relatively high value, because if the parts move apart too far, then you'll just see gaps in the creature. So a bond damping of 10, angular bond damping of 12 kind of works okay. Okay, you're probably dying to see what this creature is going to look like. Let's do it. Let's save the scene, and let's hit the play button, and maybe I'll just leave it in this view for now. Hopefully, okay. Nothing happened. Okay, let's double check what I've done wrong here. There's the head. Okay, auto assign bones should be set to be true. Why is that turned off? Let's try again. Oh, maximize on play is turned to be true, so that's okay. So let's see what happens. Oh my goodness, look at this. Now the creature is moving. Oh, look how beautiful that is. So, okay, we've pretty much gone from an empty scene to a procedurally animated creature with an AI on it, which is generating that lovely harmonic motion in about 20 minutes from a few prefabs and from spheres and a few other things. And okay, so now we're not doing too bad there at all. So there's lots you can do. I mean, the creature's kind of nice as it is, there's lots of things you can do at this stage. Just to show you something really kind of cool, and then I'll just get back to making the rest of Steve. I'll make the wings and so on. But just to show you, I can change the direction from vertical to horizontal, and that sort of changes the character of the creature altogether. Now, instead of being an up and down creature, it's a sort of a left and right wriggle. So that's pretty cool. And now it sort of has like a snake-like motion through through whatever it is. It can be a flying creature, It can be a wriggling creature on the ground, or it could be, that kind of looks like a wriggling creature on the ground, or it could be something that flies or something with wings. You can use your imagination and create all kinds of different creatures with this framework. Okay, I'm now going to make some wings for this creature. Actually, let me just change that horizontal to vertical. Okay, so it now goes up and down. And now I'm going to make some wings for this creature. Okay, actually, why don't I make fins for the creature first because they're slightly easier, and then I will go and make wings with lots of different segments. Okay, to make a fin, first thing you need to do is you need to make separate fins for the left and the right side. So I'm going to right click on my creature parts here, and I'm going to, let's see, for the fin, what do I need to do for the fin? Quick look, do I make an empty one? Yeah. I'm going to make an empty one, okay? And I'm going to just make this, make sure that's a child of Steve's creature parts and not of the body. Yeah, that is. Okay, so I'm going to rename you to be left fin. Okay, so there's the left fin. Move it over here. It doesn't really matter where you put it. What does matter though is it matters that the left fin is kind of in the local space of the object. Basically, the left fin has to point down the negative x-axis. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will add a cylinder so that the CIL, so that, no, hang on a sec. Left fin, right click on here, 3D object cylinder. Okay. All right, what I'll do is I'll just turn this on so we can see what the cylinder looks like. Okay, so there's the left fin and there's the cylinder. So the cylinder, I don't really want it to be a cylinder. I want to do a Y of 0.1, so it's more like a disc. Now, the left fin is there, and which is the parent, and then the cylinder, which is the thing that gets drawn, is the child. I'm going to add a component to the left fin called a fin animator. So the fin animator is, like, say, 3 types of components: behaviors, animators, and generators. This is an animator. Animators are synchronized to various different things on the head of the creature. This animator is going to be synchronized to the harmonic behavior on the head. So as the harmonic behavior is going through its cycle of 0 to 2 pi, this is also going to go through, and it will have the same, it will use the same theta value in order to generate its animation. This is going to generate a rotation animation, and you can say whether you want it to be an X, Y, or Z axis rotation animation. This, for me, makes sense to be a x-axis rotation. So I want it to rotate around the, let's see, the x-axis. Is that right? The x-axis. That's what I have set it to. Side, tail, left fin, x-axis. Let's leave it at the x-axis for now. I'm wondering, should it have been the... No, of course, it should be the the x-axis. Oh, yeah, the x-axis, right. Yeah, definitely the x-axis. Okay, just little moment there. Okay, and this is the left side. These values here we're going to parameterize. Let's leave that at 440, and then this is 220. So what this means here, this rotation offset, I discovered this value through a lot of trial and error and watching YouTube videos of creatures swimming, right? Basically, this means that the animation on the fin is 220 degrees offset from the animation on the head. That means as the head is going up, the fin is going down, and the head is going down, the fin is going up, and it basically makes it look like the fin is driving the movement. So a value of 220, you can experiment with different numbers for this, but I find 220 is a good number. Wiggliness, as far as I remember, is basically how many cycles the fin goes through for every cycle of the head. So at the moment, 1 is fine, but maybe if I want to use a fin animator on a tail, which I've done in some of my other examples, you can give that a value of 2, and that just means that as the head moves through 1 cycle, the tail goes through 2 cycles. But 1 is fine for this fin here anyway, okay? So X, left, amplitude of 40, and so on. Okay, one thing I probably want to do though is what's going to happen is the fin animator is going to animate this left fin. And if you notice, the cylinder is exactly centered on the left fin, so that means the cylinder is going to rotate around its center of mass, which is not what we want. I want the cylinder to rotate around kind of its left side, if you like, right? Or its extreme right side. So let's move it over like that, and then see, yeah, that's a little bit further when I move the cylinder, just so it looks like. Now, what will happen is then you'll notice that the cylinder is going to rotate kind of around its own you know, its own right hand side. So let me just do one other thing here as well. I'm going to take the cylinder and I'm going to rotate that a bit as well. So I'm going to rotate it like that, you know, so sort of like a 45 degrees Z-axis rotation. In fact, why don't I just set it to be 45 and see what happens, see if that fixes it, okay? And then as well, I need to take the left fin and make sure now that the cylinder, when it rotates, is going to rotate around the correct point on the left fin. That's almost correct. I'll just move the cylinder up slightly. There's probably a better way to do this. Somebody maybe could let me know a better way to do this. And then I'm inclined to think I should probably move it over slightly. Back a tiny bit. Left fin, and that looks correct. Okay, there's the left fin. I'm now going to make the right fin. Do the same thing again for the right fin. I'm going to create an empty game object. Create empty. I'm going to call this right fin. Name you to be RIGHT fin. Right fin. I'm going to add a fin animator to you. Fin animator, I just change you to be right. Keep the same values because they're the same. And then I'll also take, I'll make another cylinder. So I'm going to create a, right click on here, 3D object, cylinder. So there's the cylinder on the right fin. And let me just take the right fin now, move it off somewhere. There it is there. Okay, cylinder, that should be 0.1, so it's at the same size. And I'm going to just basically do the same job on the right fin as I did with the left fin. So I'm going to move the cylinder over to there. Yeah, that looks kind of correct. That doesn't matter now, actually, because I do need to rotate the cylinder 45 degrees on the Z-axis. Ooh, minus 45 degrees. Take the right fin, take the cylinder, drop it down. Right fin, cylinder, move it up. Right fin. That's about right. I'll move it over a little bit. That's better. Cool, I think that's fine. So there's the right fin and the left fin. There's the right fin and the left fin. The right fin, sorry, the right fin and the left fin. Let's drop it down like this. And now what I'll do is I'll go to Steve and I'll add the left fin prefab is going to be the left fin. Right fin prefab is the right fin. And now what you do is you say which parts you want to have fins on them. So this basically is the fin list, right? So let's say I want fins on part number 2 and I want them on part number 6. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so there's the Steve creature parts. I'll turn it off. Here's Steve again now. Steve 1 is the one I'm looking at. Why is it disabled? Oh, there's Steve 1 there. Sorry, yeah, that's the one I'm doing. So let's see what Steve looks like now with fins. Oh, look at that. There's Steve's fins. Now, it's kind of hard to see here, but what is happening with those fins? Because they are slightly too small, maybe. You know, maybe I need to scale them up a bit. But you know what I'll do? I'm going to put the fins on different parts. Put the fin maybe on part number 3 because that's a bigger body part. So it'll be just a little bit more obvious what's happening with the fins. And what I'll do as well is I'll take the head and I will disable the void, or I'll disable the integration on the void. Integrate forces, turn that off, save and run it again. So basically it won't move around, but I'll be able to see the animation. So there's the fins animating. So yeah, you can see the way the fins hopefully look like they are now driving the movement of the creature. In other words, the fins are, you know, rotating. What you can do is like even maybe that, you know, might change that angle to be even bigger to make that movement slightly more dramatic. What if I make that 60? And then if I go back to the head here and I basically turn on the integrate forces again, hit the play button. Okay, now we have this really cool creature. So what the creature will do, actually, it'll do a lot of cool things. There it is, animating the fins, you know, hopefully looking like the fins are driving the movement of the creature. There's the front fins and the back fins. You notice? Okay, I think I need to do one other thing because I'm noticing that it looks like the front and the back fins are a bit too synchronized. One of the things you can do with the creature generator, let's see, fin rotation offset 20. What did I use for mine? Did I use a bigger value? Let's say 30. This basically means that as it's generating the fins, it adds a 30-degree offset to their animation. So it just means that they're slightly more out of sync, which is what you want. I'd be inclined to maybe even try bigger numbers for that, but that could just require a little bit more tweaking. Anyway, there is Steve swimming through the water happily, you know, with his fins. Okay, I think what I'll do is pause the video now, just make sure that the audio is captured okay, and then I'll come back and I will make a second video where I'll add a tail, and maybe what I'll do is change those fins into wings for the creature, okay? So let's take one last look at Steve swimming away happily. And maybe in the second video, what we'll do as well is we'll add a noise wander behavior to the head to make it look like the creature is sort of like swimming through the water, you know, and also, you know, going left and right in addition to just moving forward. Okay.